Greetings, peace be with you. In this video, I want to talk about the vibration of weed. Right now, let's just dive into what vibration even is in the first place, because it's something that I was confused about for a long time. Just got a haircut, gave myself a haircut. See, there's a lot of hair on my forehead. Hopefully that'll go away soon. But vibration is a combination of how you think and how you feel, right? As Dr. Joe Dispenza so eloquently elaborates on this point, he says that thoughts are the language of the mind, emotions are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates your vibration, aka your state of being, aka your personality, right? And that's why, again, he says so well that your personality creates your personal reality. So your personal reality is literally a byproduct of your current vibration. And what I refer to a lot on this channel is the scale of consciousness that was developed by Dr. David R. Hawkins, okay? I'll link out to a previous video, or just check out how to unlock your personal power. He wrote a book called Power versus Force, in which he breaks down the different levels of consciousness. He breaks it down into 17 different levels. And I like using that as a reference point to look at what certain ideas, what certain practices, what certain habits, what frequency they actually vibrate at, right? And when we talk about the vibration of weed, right, you can look at the scale, but I'll elaborate for it on a bit. Okay, I'm not going to put it on the screen right now, but it's basically like, you know, they use behavioral kinesiology to do muscle testing, right? So certain intellectual stimuli test your muscles to be stronger compared to other stimuli, right? So like at the bottom you have emotions such as shame, such as guilt, such as grief, right, such as apathy, right? And then right in the middle is courage, right, beginning to actually act in the face of fear. And then above we reach to the levels of neutrality, right? When you start meditating, when you start getting an awareness of the fourth dimension, you look down at your life as the observer rather than identifying, right? And I would say that weed on that scale of consciousness vibrates at the frequency of acceptance, right? So acceptance resonates just above willingness, it is, right? And I know it might not make sense if you don't have the scale in front of you, but just think about the higher that you rise on the scale, the higher vibration is according to your frequency. And acceptance, I see weed vibrating at that frequency as well, right? Because like, first and foremost is to assess your own relationship with this plant. I mean, chances are if you're watching this video, then you've used this plant or have used it. You might be considering what is the optimal balance of the relationship that you have with Mary Jane, right? And to say the least, mine has been a complicated relationship, to say the least, right? It's been like a while since the first time I took a puff of the marijuana spirit, and from time to time she calls me. But again, for me, it's important to draw that motorbike away from me, but it's important to draw another one. It's important for me to draw the line between use and abuse, right? Because when you are engaged in the process of smoking up, right, blazing up, then you are engaged in a relationship with the marijuana spirit. And for me, I've noticed that I can easily slip into being used rather than using it, right? Because like I might be, you know, stressed out, I might be going ham, I might be taking a lot of action, and then I have these certain expectations that are not turning out the way that I did. I feel down on myself. I go and meet Mary Jane and I get some clarity, I get some awareness. I stop going on that hamster wheel so fast and I get an awareness of what's actually going on, and I begin to accept the way that things are rather than attached to the outcome, right? Rather than attached to my own expectations of how I want reality to behave. I can get an awareness on it. I can begin to accept the way that things are playing out right now, because they're playing out exactly how they're supposed to, right? They can't play out any other way than they're supposed to. This motorbike is loving destroying my video right now. I thought I drew him away from me, but at the end of the day, it comes down to whether you're being used or whether you're being abused, right? because I've definitely been the cycle of, you know, like I'm in that, okay, I get some awareness, I get some acceptance of the way that things are, then I can actually raise my level of awareness, right? Because above acceptance is reason, right? It's joy, it's love, it's peace, and then at the very top it's enlightenment on the scale of consciousness. Now, this is not a rule of law, this is not the only scale that exists. There's so many different frameworks that we can use, but for me this resonates. And when I assess the different emotions in my life, when I assess the different behaviors in my life, I see where they fall on this frequency. And in terms of weed, for sure, it has provided me with a perspective that I wouldn't have been able to get without it, right? Sometimes the marijuana spirit gives me the eyes to see the situation through a totally different lens. But there are other times where it's just like waking up, blazing, wake and bake, and having all these ideas. Yeah, it's like mental masturbation at the end of the day, right? Because they're entertaining these ideas, entertaining these thought patterns, feeling all good, going on the flow. Yeah, man, I'm, you know, really feeling the vibe right now. I elevated. I have this clarity in terms of what I'm supposed to do. But then when it comes down to actually doing that thing is where I get held back with the marijuana spirit, right? Actually doing the things, like, yeah, I get awareness on what I need to do. But when I go down the slippery slope towards abuse is when I end up getting used rather than actually using this sacred medicine, right? Because if I don't respect the medicine won't respect me. And I've definitely crossed the boundary in terms of making that relationship dysfunctional, right? So that's just something I think about a lot, because, you know, as I am on the same path as you towards self-mastery, towards getting an awareness of my role, how my ultimate self actually looks like, I see that there is this interaction with the marijuana spirit, with the weed, with the green, with the ganja, right? This is something that has been around in society for millennia. There's like some theories saying that civilization, agricultural revolution was spurred by hemp as well. Okay, so there's a lot of conspiracy around this. You can look on my channel, the truth about weed, right? Why it's actually banned. But definitely I experience you know, connection to something that gives me perspective. But what's also important to consider is that different weeds would probably have different vibrations. If you are using something that has been grown in a lab with pesticides, with herbicides, with fertilizers, that doesn't, with artificial light, right? Think about it, man. Like, stuff that is grown outdoors with the natural sunlight is going to affect you very differently than the stuff that is grown with the artificial ultraviolet, right? These are some factors to consider, to get awareness on, because these things affect the vibration of that particular plant as well, right? It's very important. It's very important to, you know, at the end of the day, realize whether there's something that frees you from your expectations, whether it's something that frees you from your attachment, whether it's something that actually makes you free, or whether it is something that leads you down the slippery slope towards even more bondage, right? Because there's a dopamine spike, right? There is a lot of stuff that's going on in your brain, right? Too much to go over in this video, but the reason that you repeat a certain behavior pattern is because you get a dopamine spike from it, right? Dopamine is what drives our behavior at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, of that day that just passed by, it's about getting an awareness, right? Being aware, and that is really the key, right? Self-awareness, knowing how something affects you, not trying to rely on some external opinion, some external scientific validated fact. Oh, the weed does this, so then you don't do that, right? As this tractor is hitting me straight in the chrome to the dome. But with that, I conclude this video. Okay, just have an awareness and constantly work on developing that awareness without relying on, you know, external factors of influence, of mass control, of stimulus. And the more you can develop that awareness, the more you can experiment with yourself, the more you can continue to level up in your own life according to what you know to be best for you, right? Imagine what your life would look like if you could let go of all the habits, of all the patterns that don't serve you, right? Think about that. What would your life look like if you truly had your best interests at heart, right? If your value of your vision was more important than the thrill of instant gratification, right? So I'll leave you with that. I hope you got value from this one. All right, this has been Mo here. Subscribe if you have not already, and I'll see you in the next video.